Our next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer. Our next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. Counting down to opening day on May 10th. Club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more. Now is the time to lock in those tee times for the 2024 season. And just by reaching out to reserve a tee time, you, the organizer, you play for free. Tell us about your groups. Whistler Golf will take care of the rest. WhistlerGolf.com/groups. And of course, follow all the spring preparations, including the Bears, the roly-poly Bears, at Whistler Golf on social media. Here he is, the host of the Frankly Speaking podcast, Daily Faceoff, NHL Insider from Nashville, Tennessee, Mr. Frank Seravalli. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah. So you made a pit stop in Salt Lake City. That looked fun.
Yeah, it was on the way-ish, I would say. I mean, you have to go south and east, so I figured from Vancouver, quick stop in Salt Lake, get a sense of what things are like in Utah, and it was an amazing experience. Really glad I did. And now here, set and ready for Game 3.
Yeah. So talk to me about Game 3, Frank. First of all, your take on what happened in Game 2, and are you of the mind the Canucks just play that game again and they should be on the winning side?
I think so. It felt like a lot of things that piled up kind of against them, whether it was, starting with the Demko injury before the game, a broken stick for JT Miller at an inopportune time, a lot of frustration that seemed to build up for this team that I'm curious to see what their body language is like to start this game. I'm a big believer in that. And will Elias Pettersson stop flogging himself? I'm not sure that it's in his nature to not do so, but if you're looking for a bright spot, if you're a Canucks fan heading into Game 3, the fact that Pettersson, Miller, Besser, and Quinn Hughes all haven't scored yet in this series is probably a pretty good omen. I like the chances and opportunities that they had. The Preds were holding on for dear life, and I think there were a couple varying points in Game 2 where it could have gone an entirely different way, and that's not how it works, but I generally believe process over everything.
Yeah, so much self-flagellation. Elias Pettersson would make a good member of Opus Dei with what's going on in this series. Thatcher Demko, what's the latest? What are you hearing on the Demko injury?
Nothing new from what I shared the other day when I joined you guys in studio. He's here in Nashville. He is rehabbing, I guess, is the best way to frame it. Part of that is just time and rest. And he remains, to my knowledge, a possibility to come back these playoffs, I believe, at some point in round 2, should the Canucks play that far. And by no means has anyone told me or given me any indication that Demko is done for the rest of the season.
How much big picture concern would there be or should there be, though, right? I mean, when you look at his situation, he's almost at the point where you're going to start calling him injury prone. Not you, but, the collective. And this injury clearly wasn't 100%, which led to a reoccurrence here.
Totally disagree. You don't think one injury is connected to the other in the same spot?
Zero.
Okay. Do you worry about him coming back at less than 100% and potentially doing long-term damage?
I don't think the Canucks would let that happen. He's too valuable of a property. I think it's not even that it's a super significant injury. It's just that there's nothing that you can really do to manipulate it to get to the point where you can try and battle through it. You're either ready or you're not. And he just needs time.
Yeah. And for me, I worry about Thatcher trying to battle through, not because he can't, but we've seen it even when last year, let's take that injury, for example, when he came into the season after what he dealt with a year ago, it forced him to make adjustments to his technique, which then led to further injury. So for me,
that's a different, but you're combining now 3 different injuries.
No, and so you're right.
I agree with you. I think there were significant concerns with the way he was never right to start last season.
Yeah.
And then his workload was off the charts. He started actually last season, spent most of the preseason and summer in Vancouver working with Ian Clark. Then he gets to a point in the season where he doesn't think he can do it anymore and continues to push and battle through. and then had to come to a full stop, and then obviously came back at the end of the year and played well again. He had a normal summer, and then this year hit the ground running, ran into the knee injury, took his time and was patient coming back, and then now has a totally different injury to the same part of the body, but totally different and unrelated. Like the two, I can't really say anymore, but the two they're not even close.
I understand what you're saying. I just don't see a scenario.
It's the same knee though, right, Frank?
Yes. It is the same knee.
Yeah.
It's the left knee. But I just can't imagine a scenario where he comes back and not, like Thatcher's a competitive guy. I can't imagine that if he comes back that he would be 100% dialed in. And I appreciate what you're saying in terms of the organization, but they went through this a year ago where it kind of felt like he was 100% coming back in, but if the
temptation of him riding to the rescue in round 2 would be pretty big.
And look, I just, you hit the nail on the head when you just talked about how valuable he was to the organization. And you just wonder, I mean, I know everyone's competitive at this stage, but I just, I can't imagine that he would save himself. Someone needs to save this guy because he's so competitive.
I think that's fair.
I don't. I think they'll save him. I do. Okay. And you know what? The reason for that is perspective. Do the Canucks have aspirations this year? 100%. Even with a fully healthy Thatcher Demko, if they're playing the Oilers in round 2, they're probably not the favorites anyway. Even with a fully healthy Thatcher Demko, they might not beat the Oilers anyway. So there's no sense in risking a goalie in his prime on one of the best contracts in the league.
Oh yeah.
And tanking next season and beyond of prime years of Hughes, Pettersson, and everyone else for that. I just don't see it happening. I'm sorry.
Is Pettersson dealing with something?
Not to my knowledge. I think there's been lots of talk. Hey, are the Canucks banged up? What's up with Quinn Hughes and his shoulder? Is there anything going on with Philip Hronek? I mean, look, you get to this time of year, there's always question marks. No one has said explicitly or even hinted or whispered at the idea that something's wrong with Pettersson. I look at him and I say, it appears to be squarely between his ears.
Yeah, I think it's clearly a confidence matter, whether it's beyond that. Yeah. Just one last thing on Demko to both of you. I heard the last round of rehab here to get back for that Calgary game, final week of the regular season. I heard that was pretty intense. Like they were putting him through 2-a-days effectively with Ian Clark. Did anybody pick up anything with regards to the workload during the rehab process, perhaps affecting him and leading?
Let me reiterate for the 1000th time on this hit. It has nothing to do with the previous injury.
No, I understand. 0. I'm not saying the injuries are connected. I'm just wondering whether or not the player was fully ready to come back or had been worked to the point of exhaustion, which allowed for a second injury to happen. Did anybody hear anything? Did anybody pick up anything?
What does allow for a second injury to happen? It's not related.
All right.
What does that mean? I don't. How much more clearly do you want me to be? How much?
Yeah, I mean, look,
that he could have used more time. That they rushed back to get him some regular season games before the playoffs started, and in retrospect, if they had had more time, he would have been out more time.
I disagree with the notion because if it were the playoffs, he would have been back 2 weeks before that. They actually took their time. It wasn't a super serious injury that he was dealing with at the end of the regular season. They gave him, how many weeks did he miss?
Missed 5.
He could have been back in 3 if it were the playoffs. And they took their time. They gave him extra time. Was it intense? Everything that Ian Clark does is intense.
It's fair.
There are no half measures or half miles when it comes to the Canucks and how their goalies work. They're notorious for that around the league. But does that have anything to do with what happened here in game 1? No, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. What would you worry most about here in Nashville, Frank? The goaltending and how Casey DeSmith holds up, this power play that doesn't yet have a goal, Pettersson actually getting the puck on the goal as opposed to just near the goal. What would be your chief concern for the Canucks as they played games 3 and 4 in Nashville?
It's honestly just mindset. I liked the process. I liked the compete. I thought for not scoring, JT Miller was excellent in the first 2 games. There's a lot of good things to focus on. Part of it seems like it's going to be trying to wear down this Nashville team. There's the phrase that Andrew Brunette used, they have a commitment to pain. And I thought that was a really nice way of framing how the Preds are looking at and thinking about this series. I think the Canucks need a similar mindset and commitment to how they're going to score, because that's really maybe the unwritten or less spoken about thing about this Canucks team, is more or less how they do at times struggle to score, and they do, struggle to get the puck over the line. It can look great, it can look fancy, but it doesn't always need to be. And at times, this time of year especially, that's seemingly when you can make magic happen, is when you've got a commitment to pain to score.
What about Nashville at home? Andrew Brunette said after the last game, he didn't like the fact that they basically didn't have the puck at all in the entire third period and wants them to play differently. This team is known for kind of an up-tempo style and how they break the puck out and how they want to play off the rush. So do they attempt to play differently now that they're at home, and also potentially have last change, and how that might affect matchups?
They should. I don't think Andrew Brunette's going to be chasing anything. I'd be surprised. In terms of, this is another way that I look at the first 2 games, is that I didn't look at one part of the way Nashville played and thought, oh, they're in control. It was almost like I don't know if it's quite fair to compare it to the way the Kings play, which is like, hey, in order for us to beat the Oilers, we've got to sit back and go in our 1-3-1 and just hope and pray and wish. It feels like the way the Preds are looking at this series, they're almost conceding that they're not as good as the Canucks, and that there is a lot of hoping and wishing going on. And as mentioned in that third period, hanging on for dear life. When your first shot is the empty netter that hits the back of the net, that's an indication of the push that the Canucks had, but it's also more so an indication of how I think Nashville is thinking about this.
Yeah, 37-4, the shot attempts at even strength.
Unreal.
In the third period. Frank, what about lotto line here? We're asking that as our poll question. If Pettersson continues to struggle, if goals continue to be a problem, could you see them reuniting lotto line permanently, not just the flashes that we've seen in the opening 2 games?
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, so would I.
I think the longer you go without finding success, you have to put everything on the table.
Yep, I'm with you. You ain't got time to bleed. It's like a baseball manager, stud pitcher. If he's not going in the second inning in a playoff game, you got to go get him, regardless of what he's done for you in the past, right? You ain't got time to bleed. You got to manage these games a little differently than you would a regular season game. Lastly, just circling back on your Salt Lake experience, I think that could be a really good market for the league.
I don't think I know.
Yeah. Oh, do you know? You're that confident?
I'm telling you, getting there and seeing fans wrapped around that building just for a 1-hour show to meet the team, a bunch of guys in suits, NHL jerseys of all denominations, that building was electric. They were flocking to merchandise stands to buy gear that quite literally just has the NHL shield on it and the word Utah.
It's amazing that Gary
buys that.
Yeah. It's amazing that Gary's been able to fall forward like this, right? Because Arizona was all about him and his refusal to let go of the market, and he still hasn't. And he's fallen forward into this Utah situation, which, you can say what you want, and I have, right, about players choosing to live in Arizona and now being forced to live in Salt Lake. But from a hockey perspective, and Salt Lake's a nice city. It's a little, a little different culturally, but in terms of as a hockey market, I totally agree. I mean, I think I think Salt Lake's going to be a home run.
yeah, look, they've got to figure out the arena situation. They're gonna massively renovate it, apparently, to make it 17,000 seats, and it's already been,
Unobstructed.
yeah, it's already been modernized inside, which is nice. It's affluent, it's young and vibrant. It's one of the youngest states in the US. And I just think seeing the look on the players' faces, that to me told me everything, because there's this unique sort of feeling out process in the arena. Those fans wanted to know, hey, what are these guys all about? And then the players are like, well, hey, most of us have never been to Utah before. What does this place look like? How are the people? And are they excited to see us? And it kind of felt like, you know, that scene in Step Brothers where they're like, hey, did we just become best friends? Like, there was like an instant connection to team and market. And I have zero doubt. I want to see how Bill Armstrong and Andre Tournier work with actual resources.
Yes.
I mean, you can grade them on their success or failures in the NHL, but now do it, you know, working for a seemingly actual sane owner and well-funded one. And you can say what you want about Gary Bettman and the 2 decades in the desert. I wrote today, I think this is maybe his most savvy heist, because there have been unquestioned failures in Arizona. However, he was dealing with an owner 6 weeks ago who did not want to sell his team and was potentially threatening years of litigation.
Yep.
To get out of there and to now take the 32nd team, the problem child, weakest link in the chain, and now make it a strength.
Yep.
That's a huge win.
Yeah. Look, two minds on Bettman in Arizona. Number one, commend him in the league office for having the commitment to the market that they did have. It would have been easy to relocate that franchise years ago. They didn't want to do that for the few hockey fans that they had in Arizona. Did they throw good money at after bad at that franchise? Yes. Was it ever going to work? I think the writing was on the wall decades ago that it wasn't a good market for ice hockey and was going to fail. But
I disagree with that notion, though. I do think it's a good market. I think they've never been set up for success. They've never had an arena that's located in a proper place that's built for hockey.
But Frank, to me,
they've never won. What have they had to cheer for?
To me, the arena thing is a bit of canard. The arena in Glendale was absolutely beautiful. Now, it may have been inconvenient, but if you love hockey enough, you will get there. And they did not.
How many people are driving an hour after the game to get home? I don't know about you, but I'm not driving an hour to see a regular season hockey game for a team that stinks, that has no chance to win.
I agree. Like, I just think that they'll go to Glendale for football. They'll go for the NFL, but not for the NHL. And I mean, it's like, are we going to Abbotsford for the Canucks on a regular basis if they were bad?
Yeah. Anyways,
are you going to Abbotsford?
No, well, that's my point, right? I'm just saying that.
No, but that's
we'd watch on TV because it's a passionate
it's an
market.
AHL to NHL comparison.
No, but I'm saying if his Farhan's question is legitimate, if the
Canucks
NHL Canucks played in Abbotsford, would you go?
If the NHL Canucks played in Abbotsford,
yes. Would everybody flock to Abbotsford and be inconvenienced? I mean, look, now we've got a big population in the Valley, and that was supposed to happen in Glendale, which never did, right? So we want the convenience of downtown.
But that's it. Like, if you have enough hockey fans, the location of the arena doesn't really matter as much.
Yeah, but it did. You're from Ottawa. It was bad in Canada.
Yeah. Right.
It's still bad, and it's still
in a great place. It's not in a great place, but it's a hockey market. No, the attendance isn't great now. They've had bad teams, but it's still a hockey market. Like in Phoenix, it was embarrassing, the attendance. And not to mention how few people were actually watching the games on television.
How many good Sens teams? Like, come on. Well, so the Sens have gotten to a cup final, a conference final, all those things in the last 2 decades. What have the Coyotes done?
Right. Well, in the case of Ottawa, really small market. And number two, the chief employer cannot buy seats, right? Because the federal government has ethics rules around, buying up suites and things like that and giving away tickets. So there are some specific challenges in Ottawa. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a great NHL market. It's not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the arena's in the best place. It is not. But draw a circle around the Canadian Tire Center, and you've got scores and scores of hockey fans. Do the same in any arena in the metropolitan Phoenix area, and I'm just not sure you do.
Well, here's what I would say. They
certainly weren't watching games on television, so
just as we would grade now Bill Armstrong and Andre Tournier on their ability to work with actual support, I'd like to grade that market on a proper arena location and a good team.
All right, fair enough. Lastly, did you get a sense of what the leading name in the clubhouse is for the Utah team?
Nope. They're gonna. There was a chant of Utah Yetis in the arena. There seems to be a groundswell of support for that, but they are going to do a bracket challenge and have 8 teams where they select the team name. The fans will select the team name. Now, I'd be curious to see which team selected 8 names make it into that bracket, and then exactly how the bracket is structured. And I'd like to see some transparent voting. But let's see how that unfolds.
Ditto. Hey, what we said yesterday was like, once you go Kraken, you can go Yeti, right? Like Kraken opened the door to Yeti. One mythical creature, and the next franchise coming in goes mythical creature.
I just want a creature. I want something. What is a Washington Capital? What is a Philadelphia Philly? I mean, you need something to hang on to. Some fierceness.
So Utah Hockey Club isn't going to work for you.
Doesn't do it for me. I mean, maybe if we were in Copenhagen, I could see that.
Look, these people here are buying T-shirts that have 7 letters on them. NHL and Utah.
So they've doubled.
Utah Hockey Club may actually work.
They've doubled the merchandising opportunity. This was great.
They're literally buying like their hoodies that just is a giant NHL shield. Could you imagine walking around in Vancouver that just was like, hey, it just says NHL Shield and Vancouver.
Not the NHL Shield.
Rob Lowe at the Super Bowl with the NFL hat on. You remember?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Hey, great stuff, Frank. Thank you for this. You're going to join me Sunday post-game, so I appreciate that. Thanks for the time.
See you guys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.